Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pot of Gold podcast. For this episode, we're going to be talking about all the different things that happened in my journey over the past year, some of the lessons that I've learned, and hopefully kind of some expectations going forward for what I'm going to be doing with the show. So just to kind of get right into it, this is the Pot of Gold podcast where we talk about finances, wealth generation, and real estate investing. And I've been interviewing other business owners and investors and those that are kind of real estate adjacent to try to understand exactly what it is that they're doing to find success, how they're growing, and learn things myself along the way and share those things with you as well. So it's been a really intense year compared to the rest of my life for me. The fact that my little boy is here and he's growing quick. I can't believe how fast it is. But it's interesting to kind of measure things from his growth, because when we brought him home from the hospital, he was not very big, and now he's taller than my wife's waistline. So I can't believe a 2-year-old can get that big that quick. Some of the lessons I learned in 2024 is, I got to be honest with you guys, most of the time I'm scared. After having my assault when I was 18 back in 2008, where the whole right side of my skull was shattered, it's been very hard for me to talk to people and to connect with other humans on that basic level. But becoming an entrepreneur and learning to network with other people and have these conversations has really been a great help for me. The interesting thing is that my fear hasn't really gone away, but I did have this realization that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's taking action despite it. And once I heard one of the speakers at a Tony Robbins event say that it's okay to do things imperfectly, it's okay to do things scared, and it's okay to do them messy as long as you do them anyway, I was able to start making some real progress because I finally gave myself permission to do things imperfectly. One of the biggest obstacles to finding things that I want to do or accomplishing the goals that I have has been my energy management, because I still work a grave shift job at my W-2 where I help build the jet engines that go into the Taurus and Tomahawk missile systems. I do enjoy that work, but I don't know that it's going to help me achieve the long-term wealth goals that I have. And so we're trying to build this business on the side, at least until a time comes that it would be logical for me to set it aside and work on something else full-time. I've been able to keep track of some of the things that I've been doing. I haven't tracked as well as I could have throughout the year because I did not understand the importance of tracking the things that you are working on. And it was, I think, Alexander Hormozy who first taught me that if you do not track things, you do not care about them. And I like to remember Thomas S. Monson. He's a prophet of the church that I attend. He also said that what you measure improves. And if you measure something and then report it, the rate of improvement accelerates. So I've kind of tried to keep those two things in mind as I've started tracking. I'm not exactly sure when I started, but here are some of the numbers that I've been able to discover of what we've accomplished this year. I've gone to over a dozen in-person meetups. I went to an event called the Squad Up Summit, which is actually the very first out-of-state event that I'd planned for myself. So I'd never booked a hotel before. I'd never planned a flight, and I managed to do those things. I also took a road trip down to Arizona to see the investment property that I invested in the Sub2 crowdfund. And I took my wife and son to go do that, and it ended up being a really good family trip. I got to see some old friends from my video gaming days when I played World of Warcraft, and I was able to give them a gift that I'd made on my 3D printer, and I really enjoyed that process. I've actually recorded 27 podcast episodes, including this one today. Even though it's the 28th episode, I accidentally skipped number 13 somehow, which is kind of ironic and funny because 13 tends to be the one that people are, what's the word, suspicious about? Is it suspicion? It's another word that starts with S, but I don't know if it's suspicion. I now have over 500 Instagram followers. I have a high number of YouTube subscribers. I'll have to double check that once I'm done with the episode, but I think it's 72 or 73 now. I have looked through all of my Facebook messaging, and I found that I have over 1,100 two-way conversations in Facebook Messenger alone, which really kind of blew me out of the water. I had no idea that I'd been talking to that many people when just last year I struggled to make a conversation with a stranger. I did my first private money loan, and then I've joined several coaching programs this year to help me learn more about business and to accelerate my growth curve. One of those was Sub 2. I was already part of the Gator community, but I decided to invest in the Sub 2 community as well so that I could learn how to purchase properties creatively. And what I mean by that is purchasing them outside traditional bank financing, where you make contractual agreements with the people that you're buying the properties from. A lot of that is going to entail basically maybe taking over the payments of someone else's mortgage, doing seller financing, learning about things like wrap around mortgages, hybrid deals where you do a combination of different things like that, land contracts. I learned about quitclaim deeds. I learned about all kinds of real estate vernacular, but we can go into that a little bit more later. I've read over 12 books this year. I'll come out with a list of those if you guys are interested in that. I also joined another community which was originally called Financial Foundations and Financial Mastery, but ended up becoming Fundwise and Fundwise Pro. And I've made a lot of good friendships and connections in there. Interestingly enough, this very month, I was able to make a couple of phone calls to real estate agents for the very first time without feeling a brick in my stomach. And I feel like that's huge progress. So it's not as intimidating as it was, and I think that I can continue to do that. From the books and the coaching programs that I've started, I've actually formed my very first intentional habit. All the other habits that I've ever had were created just as a course of living my life. But this one I was very intentional with, and it was a habit of doing at least 45 minutes of cardio every single day, and where I at least break a sweat, and it's got to be uninterrupted. And because I suffer with some back pains and problems with that, the lifting of weights has been intimidating to me because the times that I have tried to do it has sometimes increased my pain and has made me rather miserable for several days afterwards. So I'm sticking to cardio right now until I can figure out what's going on with that. But as of today, I have done at least 158 consecutive days of doing at least 45 minutes of cardio. And I did that on purpose, and it's an amazing feeling to know that I can create a habit like that on purpose. I've also started the hiring process to find an operations manager under the instruction of the other coaching program that I joined, which is the Growth Co. with Jesse Stanton, who's a phenomenal guy. I definitely recommend connecting with him if you haven't already. I've also joined a coaching program with Dan Martell and a woman named Adley that teaches about how to make viral videos with Viralish. However, unfortunately, because of the way my schedule works and I have my struggles to keep all of the balls juggled, I haven't been able to invest as much time into the last coaching program as I would prefer. So maybe coming here into 2025, I can make that more of a priority. One of the books that I read talks about The One Thing. It was written by Gary Keller, and that had a big impact on the way I was approaching the way I do things. It kind of emphasized this idea of standardize before you optimize. And I thought that that was a really good lesson that I had to learn myself, because back when I first started exercising, I would go as hard as I could and I'd really wreck my body. But as a result, I'd have several days of recovery that I'd have to go through. And what it did is it interfered with the habit formation. And so I learned that it's better to form the habit first at a weight that you are capable of doing consistently and not missing a day with. And then from there, you incrementally improve and do the progressive overload. And I know people say that, but I had to learn the lesson myself for some reason. It wasn't sinking in. I also learned that what you don't change, you choose. And that's kind of an intimidating concept, because that means that you really are accountable for everything about your life. And that is a harsh thing to come to terms with sometimes, especially if you're not living up to standards that you might have set for yourself or to the potential that you know you're capable of. Also learned that volume will solve 90% of your problems. I think a lot of us, myself included, expected that the actions we were taking would yield results a lot quicker than they actually do, and that we didn't realize how many reps were going to be involved. But now that I've come to understand that, I'm willing to put in the work and do those extra reps as well. Apart from that, we've done all of those podcast episodes, and I learned a lot of different things from each of the people that I interviewed. It's really cool that I get to talk to such a wide variety of people, and every single one of them has something to share that I learned from. And so going all the way back to the start of the year, I talked to Kyle Campbell, and the idea of what are called CRMs, or customer relationship management software. And so it basically helps you keep track of all the connections that you're making, understand what it is you talked about the last time, how you can help them, and when you reach out to follow up with them, set up drip sequences, and kind of automate some of the things that are tedious but are still important, because you don't want your relationships to sour or to go stale. Then I got to talk with Christina, who isn't actually a CPA, but she's an accountant. She helps with taxes, and she helped also by doing coaching for bookkeeping, which is something that I needed to kind of at least learn the basics of, because I didn't know how to manage my books at all. And she's been a huge help with helping me learn how to do balance sheets and profit and loss, bank reconciliations, and just keep track of all the finances of the money, where it's going, and how that works. Then I talked to Darian Blake about wholesaling and how he started with bandit signs. He taught me the concept of geofencing, and that other people that are learning about wholesaling and want to get started in that realm or that niche would be benefited by working with him at DB Realty, and he's also in the process of writing his first book. Then I talked to Shane Evans. He is in the process of doing multifamily and business acquisitions, and I learned about how things like that tend to be structured, and how you can actually go out and find businesses that you can add value to, purchase them, and they cash flow from day one. And it's actually a really good way to start generating an income that would replace your W-2 if that's the route you want to go. Next, I talked to Jesse Stanton, who's the owner of the Growth Co. I actually joined his coaching program after our podcast interview, and he teaches you how to pay yourself to buy properties as you raise capital, and that you need to hire from the top down. And so that's why I'm in the process of looking to hire an operations manager, because I'm trying to implement the things that he taught in his coaching course. I also talked to Malcolm Turner, who's in commercial lending for something like 27 years, which is pretty impressive. And he's written a book called Financing the Unbankable Deal, and I really enjoyed my conversation with him. I think it's actually my longest podcast episode. So if you're interested in tuning into that, make sure you pick up some popcorn. Then Monique Aranda, she's another student in the Growth Co. And when I talked to her, she explained the concept of what's called a wraparound mortgage, where you take and secure a property at a lower interest rate, and then you sell it to an end buyer at a higher interest rate, and then you take and pocket the difference. I also got to speak with Nathaniel Hovsepian, which was a fun episode because I'm Nathaniel as well, and there's a lot of, hey Nathaniel, hello Nathaniel, and that was just kind of entertaining to me. And he's really emphasized the importance of networking, and it's been really cool to see his podcast grow, because I think he's over 70 episodes now, and he even got to interview Pace Morby himself. So go ahead and check that out if you get the chance. Then I got to speak to Dan Grove, who is a full-time medical professional who's also making time somehow to invest in real estate, and he's teaching other medical professionals how to do that. And then Zach Bush, he is somebody who got first started into investing through Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is I found a common theme. That's been a very influential book for a lot of people, and his exploration of the FIRE movement, which is, see if I get this acronym right, it's financially independent, retire early. And so he managed to move from that location into real estate investing, and now is finding good success in that field. Then I got to reconnect with an old high school buddy named Peter Fife, and I found out that he was taking really run-down and condemned apartment complexes, so like D-class properties, and he is flipping them, and he's become a multimillionaire in order by doing that. Then Rex Shippey actually specializes in a niche in Idaho and a market, and he also has a specific type of exit strategy that he's using, which is to kind of help people who are in a corporate situation. So like people who are making insurance claims, and they have to have a place to live in the short term, and he does like a midterm rental situation to corporations so that people in those situations can have housing, which I thought was really neat. And I spoke with Brenda Villafranco. She's a person that I know through the MD lending and transactional lending world. And I found it interesting that most of her outreach that she does is either considered warm outreach or like relationship building. And it's been really interesting to see her success because she's really emphasized the importance of building genuine relationships, and it's borne fruit for her. And so I like seeing how that's been successful for her. And I've been trying to implement it myself and be more concerned about what other people are working on and how I can help them succeed with that. Then I got to speak with Jody Ogden. He's also another student in the Growth Co. And I like the way he's approaching things because he's going to be helping high net worth individuals as well as people that work in oil fields in the oil industry find ways to save on their taxes through investment strategies. And so that's going to be really good for the people that work with Jody. Just going through the rest of my notes here, that pretty much covers a lot of the things that I've done this year. I do have other interviews that I did with people for the podcast. I'm actually kind of hoping that we can get more episodes out as we march forward. The next person that I talked to in the podcast was Anton Zarelyev. It's not an English name, so I have to practice pronouncing it. But he actually came from Uzbekistan as an immigrant and has since been able to become a multimillionaire. He runs a company called REI Call Center, which helps people like wholesalers and other investors hire cold callers and stuff for their business so that they can focus on higher leverage activities. And his story was really interesting. I highly recommend watching that episode to learn more about that. Then I got to talk with Brandon Laney. He did a crazy thing in my mind is that he's working 12-hour days driving a truck across the nation, and he's also investing in long-distance real estate through sober living, which I think is an amazing model. It helps people fix their lives because one of the most important things that you can do to affect a change in your life is to change your environment. And what a blessing that he's been able to help people with that. Then I got to talk to Chasen Bates, and I started learning about funds for the first time, which is a way that you can raise capital so that you can go out and find investment properties and get people returns without having to set up a single contract with every single asset and every single investor that you borrow money from in order to make everything work. So it kind of systematizes and accelerates the process for you. And then I got to talk to his business partner, Jay Holder, who helps run their transaction coordination business, Finish Line TC Services. And the importance of a transactional coordinator is just amazing because when I did my private money loan, there were a lot of things I just didn't understand because it was the very first time I've ever done things. And having that second person there to have eyes on the deal to kind of help me identify things that I might not be aware of was invaluable and definitely worth every penny that I spent. So definitely recommend every time you do your transaction to go find a transaction coordinator and work with them. They're worth every penny. Then I got to talk to Gina Weibel, and she has been raising capital for multifamily funds and syndications. And she went through all the different structures that those can fall under, from 501c and 501b, and the difference between accredited and non-accredited investors. And that was a very valuable episode as well. I learned a lot. And then finally, we ended out the year with my good friend Kimberly Hoyt, was the very first person I got to meet when I went to a public event, and she was just so welcoming. It just kind of set the stage for being able to connect with other people in the community. And she is working to empower other women in the real estate space, and I can't wait to see what she's going to be doing. So that's kind of the recap for what we've done over the past year. I can scarcely comprehend all the growth that I've gone through this year, and I just want to give heartfelt thanks to everyone who has joined me along the way, and I look forward to see what we can build this coming 2025. So thank you for tuning in to this year-end episode, recap episode, repeating myself now, of the Pot of Gold podcast, where we talk about finances, wealth generation, and real estate investing. See you next year.